When John White finally reached Roanoke Island again, the houses were gone. Not burned, not smashed, dismantled. And carved into the abandoned settlement was one word: Croatoan. Nearby, another tree carried only 3 letters: C-R-O. That should have been a clue, maybe even a good one. But White never reached Croatoan Island to check. A storm turned him back. And the people he had left behind, 117 men, women, and children, slipped out of the record. The strange part is not that they left. They had reasons to leave. The strange part is that they left the message clear enough to follow, and history still never caught up with them. The 1587 Roanoke Colony was not supposed to become a ghost story. John White led 117 settlers across the Atlantic, men, women, and children. They were not just soldiers or raiders. They were trying to build something permanent. Their intended destination was farther north, near the Chesapeake Bay, but they ended up back on Roanoke Island, a place already marked by tension, hunger, and failed English ambition. This is where the trouble starts, not with the vanished colony, with a colony placed somewhere fragile. White had not been there long before the pressure became obvious. There was a threat of attack, there was not enough reliable food, and winter was coming. So White returned to England for supplies and more settlers. Before he left, the colonists agreed to a plan. If they moved before he came back, they would carve their destination into a tree. That detail matters because it cuts through the fog. The carving was not necessarily a threat, or a curse, or some strange message in the woods. It may have been exactly what White told them to leave: a direction. There was also a larger plan. The colonists were expected to divide. Some would remain on Roanoke, others would head inland, searching for better ground and better supplies. So if White returned and found fewer people, that alone would not prove disaster. It might prove the plan had been used. But England fell into war with Spain. The Spanish Armada kept ships close to home. White expected to return in 1588. He did not get back until 1590. 3 years is a long time, especially for people low on food, living inside uncertain alliances on the edge of a continent they barely understood. When White's party finally landed in August of 1590, they found the settlement, but not the colony. There were no people, no obvious battle scene, no bodies, no graveyard wanting to explain everything. White found CRO carved into a tree, then Croatoan carved into the palisade. The fortifications and houses had been taken apart. That part is hard to ignore. People fleeing in terror usually do not carefully dismantle buildings. A hurricane could have struck the Outer Banks. A storm could have forced them away. But White did not describe a settlement ripped apart by weather. The buildings were gone because people had taken them down. That is quieter, and somehow worse. White also found personal belongings spoiled and broken. Books torn from their covers, mat frames rotted by rain, armor eaten through with rust. Those things do not prove death, they prove absence. Objects waited longer than the people did, and the one clue left behind pointed south, toward Croatoan. Present-day Hatteras Island. The Croatoan people lived there. Mateo, a Croatoan man friendly to the English, had known the colonists. So the connection was not random. White believed the settlers have gone there, and honestly, that's the clean explanation. It works better than most of the dramatic ones, but it still has one stubborn problem. White never confirmed it. He tried to sail for Croatoan, then the weather turned again. Rough seas and the loss of an anchor forced the mission away. White returned to England. He never learned what happened. That is the cruel hinge of the story. The answer may have been close enough to sail to, but not close enough to survive the weather, or the timing, or the limits of a rescue voyage that was never simple. Over time, the theories multiplied. Maybe famine and disease killed them. But White found no graves in the village. Maybe the Spanish attacked, but there was no clear sign of a massacre on Roanoke. Maybe the colonists tried to reach the Chesapeake Bay. That had been Riley's intended site, but it would have meant a dangerous move for people already under pressure. Maybe they went inland, up the Albemarle Sound. That possibility has some weight. John White's map contains a covered symbol, sometimes read as a fork-like mark. It points towards an inland area near present-day Bertie County. Archaeologists have found English artifacts in that region. But there is still no confirmed Lost Colony village, no confirmed graves, no final place where the whole story locks shut. The Croatoan theory remains the strongest. Artifacts from the right period have been found on Hatteras Island. Researchers have argued that some colonists may have joined, lived beside, or blended into the Croatoan community. That is not far-fetched. It may be the most human explanation. Hungry people under pressure do not usually choose legend. They choose survival. But even here, the evidence stops short of certainty. Some English objects could have been moved through trade. No human remains have been definitively tied to the Roanoke settlers there. No single confirmed settlement has ended the argument. That does not kill the theory, it just keeps it from becoming a closed case. The word Croatoan probably was not meant to frighten anyone. It may have been the opposite, a practical message, a signpost, the way of saying, "We left. But we told you where." This is the part that bothers me. Roanoke is remembered as a disappearance, but the colonists may have done exactly what they were told to do. They left the destination. They left no cross. They left no obvious sign of violence, and still the trail ends there. Not because there was no clue, because the one man who understood the clue never reached a place it named.